Okay, now we are multiplying and dividing decimals. When we added and subtracted decimals, we lined up the decimal, right? Now, for multiplying and dividing, there's no lining up or anything. In fact, when you multiply them, you multiply decimal numbers as if they were whole numbers. And then you count up the number of decimal places in the two factors, and that's what you put on your final answer. Let me show you what I'm talking about. On this first example, we're multiplying 45.9 times 0.42. So I'm going to multiply 45.9, actually you don't put the decimals on there, 45.9 and 0.42. So you multiply them as if they're just whole numbers. So let's do that. 2 times 9 is 18. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 more is 11. 8 plus 1 more is 9. Bring down a 0 so that we can multiply the tens digit. 4 times 9 is 36, carry the 3. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 3 more is 23, carry the 2. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 2 more is 18. I'm going to add them. I get an 8, a 7, a 12, so we carry the 1, 9, and a 1. Now, to figure out how many decimal places you're going to need, count the decimal places in the problem. There are 2 digits behind the decimal in the second number, and there's 1 digit behind the decimal in the first number. So that is 3 decimal places for my answer. So let's count them off. 1, 2, 3. Here's where my new decimal goes. So the answer is 19.278. Let's look at the next one. And I can go ahead and look at it and see that the answer is going to have 4 decimal places. But let's multiply. Remember, you multiply the numbers as if they are just regular whole numbers. So 623 times 35. 15, carry the 1. That's 10 plus 1 more is 11. 5 times 6 is 30, plus 1 is 31. Bring down the 0 so we can multiply the tens digit. 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 times 6 is 18. We have a 5, that's 10, carry the 1, that's 8. 8 plus 3 is 11, bring down the 1, carry the 1. And when we get finished, remember it's 4 decimal places we have to count off. So start at the end, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's where my new decimal place goes. So my answer is 2.1805. Let's do it again. Now, if we have a positive number times a negative number, we know we're going to get a negative answer. Oh, let me go ahead and erase that, and I'll just put it in. This is where our answer is going to go. I know it's going to be negative because a positive times a negative is a negative. Let's count our decimal places up. 1, 2. So I know we're going to have 2 decimals. Oh, excuse that. Goodness. Okay, 2 decimal places in my answer. Let's do it. So we've got 52 times 33. Remember, you pretend the decimals are not even there. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 5 is 15. Bring down the 0, do it again. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 5 is 15. Then add them together, 6, 11, so carry the 1, 7, and 1. And I need 2 decimal places in my final answer, so 1, 2. This is where your new decimal place goes. So my answer is 17.16. Let's do it again. All right, to start off, the answer is going to be positive or negative. A negative times a negative, that's a positive. So positive, and I'm looking at this and thinking the answer is going to have 2 and then 1 more decimal. So 3 decimal places. Now to multiply them, pretend the decimals are not even there. 235 times 17. 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 3 more is 24. Carry the 2. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 2 more is 16. Bring down the 0 so we can multiply the tens digit. 1 times 5, 1 times 3, 1 times 2. I'm going to add everything together. That's 5, 9, 9, and 3. I know that it's going to include 3 decimal places, so 1, 2, 3. Here's where my new decimal point goes. So my final answer will be 3.995. Let's keep going. Multiplying by 10 is kind of cool because it really, if it's a positive, if it's a 10, you move over that number of places. So you look at the number of zeros in the multiple of 10. So if it's just a 10, it's one place. I want to say that. Let me see the perfect way to say it. Move 1 to the right. Before we do that one, let's go ahead and look at this one. If it's a 100, there are 2 zeros in that number, right? So we're going to move the decimal 2 to the right. Let's do it. So if I start off with the number 25.3, and I've got to move my decimal place 1 to the right. Here's where the new decimal place goes, so my answer is 253. For 503.003, I want to move my decimal 2 places to the right, so 1, 2. Here's where my new decimal point goes. So the final answer will be 50,300.3. Let's keep going. When you multiply a negative 1.33 times 1,000, that means you're going to move 3 to the right. Do it. 1, 2, 3. It didn't have enough positions for 3 moves to the right, so we're going to put a placeholder of 0 in there. So our final answer will be negative 1,330. Now, when we multiply by tenths or hundredths, which means they're decimal places now, you're going to go to the left. So when you multiply by 10, 100, 1,000, you're making something bigger, so the decimal moves to the right. When you're multiplying by hundredths, tenths, or thousandths, you move the decimal to the left because you want to make it smaller. So here, we're going to move 2 to the left because you're going to make it smaller 2 decimals. So I'm going to take the 9.63, I'm going to move it 2 to the left, 1, 2. I'm going to need a placeholder. So my answer will be 0.0963. I'm multiplying it by 1/10. So I need to move it 1 to the left. 1/10 means 1 movement to the left to make it smaller. So if I have 3.7, I'm going to move the decimal 1 place to the left. That's where my new decimal goes. So the answer will be 0.37. Now, the next one, we're multiplying 2 negative numbers together, so I know my final answer is going to be positive. And I know that 1, 2, 3 decimal places to the left. So I'm making it smaller. When you're multiplying by 10, 100, 1,000, you're making it bigger, so you go to the right. When you're multiplying by a tenth, a hundredth, a thousandths, you move it to the left. So Now I'm going to take the 2541. If it doesn't show a decimal, it's assumed to be at the end. Let's move it 3 to the left. 1, 2, 3. Here's where my new decimal place goes. We said it was positive, so my answer is 2.541. All right. Before we divide decimal, well, we're actually going to go into the, well, we can do a couple here. We're going to talk about dividing decimals. We're going to move the decimal point in the divisor to the right until the divisor is a whole number. And actually, I think I'm going to save this for the next video. I'll see you then.